It was scary, I have to tell you that, and it's still unbelievable. I can't believe how much damage was inflicted on our area. You know, the news media dubbed our Ortley Beach area as ground zero of Superstorm Sandy. Building up to that, I have to give our governor credit for a couple of 3 or 4 nights before the storm at 5 o'clock every night. He had a conference call with the mayors along the coast, and he had Colonel Fuentes as the OEM director and people from the Weather Service and Commissioner Bob Martin and so on, talking about their different capabilities and what we should be looking for. And I will never forget this, that the night before the storm, the representative of the National Weather Service in Mount Holly came on and said, listen, we've done all of our testing, all of our modeling. This storm is definitely going to make a left turn and come ashore and hit the state. And they said, you know, so if you have mandatory evacuation orders, make sure you get people out, and all of these warnings about low-lying areas and so on. And then the last thing he said, and I will never forget it, he said, mark my words, there is nobody alive in the state of New Jersey who has ever seen what we are going to see as a result of this storm. And I remember it word for word because, boy, by the next morning, he was absolutely right on. What really happened was it caused so much of the damage, in addition to the surge overwashing the dunes on the ocean side, when the ocean broke through the barrier island in Mandaloking, the Barnegat Bay rose about 4 feet in an hour or so. We responded to 542 911 calls in a little bit less than an hour's time. And I want to tell you, our guys deserve so much credit. When I was first able to go over the bridge with the police after the water had gone down, because the causeway to Pelican Island was underwater, we got over by the A&P where you start to go north on Route 35, and we had to stop. The poles were down. There was 3 or 4 feet of sand that had washed down from the beach. There were houses in the middle of the right-of-way of Route 35 that had washed down from the ocean front, and there was a horrendous smell of natural gas because his houses were wiped off their foundations that severed the gas service lines. If that happens on any given day, you can go to the curb with a wrench and turn the gas off. You couldn't find those outlets or cutoffs because they were buried in sand. And I can remember standing there with our police officers saying, my God, where do you even begin to clean this up? And so they had a lot going on. They even had people from the urban search and rescue crew with cadaver dogs going up and down to see if there was anybody in any of these houses. I have to give credit to the State Department of Transportation. They really took charge of that cleanup job. But we were not able to let the residents go back for a long time because the DOT people identified sinkholes throughout that area. You know, the water table is only a little bit below the surface of the road because the ocean is there and the bay's on the other side. And they have a device that they tow on a truck that is what they call ground penetrating radar. And that identified sinkholes where the turmoil underneath created holes. So they had to break them open, fill them in with gravel, and cover them over before they could let people go over there. We had so many people in the shelter who left figuring they'd be back home the next day. And a lot of them had no homes to go home to. That was a pathetic thing to have to talk to people and say, where did you say you live? The house isn't there anymore. And it was really an emotional situation. We were finally able to get people to go back. We engineered the whole thing and supervised it. They'd go by school bus with police officers. And we had some houses identified with red stickers that was too dangerous to even let people go in because they were tilted over or whatever. But we had this bus station set up at a shopping center here in town. And I was there when the buses came back, and I know one lady got off, people were crying, they could get just some little possessions. And one lady was clutching a ship's wheel with her kids' names on it. She was holding it and crying because that's the only thing she could find of their house. I'm so proud of the volunteer spirit that was manifested. We couldn't have done what we did without the volunteers. The churches all came. I met with the Association of Clergy here in town a day or two after the storm. I said, hey, you folks have to help us. You have church halls, kitchens, congregations that can help, and they really did. To give you an example, Home Depot called and said, Tom, we've got an 18-wheeler heading your way with $30,000 worth of cleaning gear. And I thought, oh, that's great. And then I thought, wait a minute, where are we going to put it? Well, one of the churches in town said we could use their kids' basketball court, so we unloaded it all there, and then we had other churches distribute that stuff around. So that's just one example. The schools are closed, so the teachers volunteered. They set up what they call a people's pantry with food and so on. Just another example I like to recite because I'm proud of our guys. Somebody gave us trays and trays of sandwiches, and so we had these trays of sandwiches, just handing them out to people because they couldn't cook, there was no power. And the Silverton Fire Department guys were helping in this thing. We had the trays on the fire engines in case they got a call, they could go. And while we're in the midst of doing that, the chief told me that he and 19 of his firemen who were all here helping and all volunteers had all lost their own homes, but here they were out helping give out food to other people. So I mean, I'm just really, proud of all those people. You may know this, but the state of New Jersey experienced a $4 billion loss of ratables along the coast. $2 billion, half of all that damage was right here in Toms River. And the other thing is, with losing that amount of ratables, if we didn't get help, we would have had to raise everybody's taxes. We couldn't do anything to cut back on our budget. We still have 18 schools to run. We have to pay the police and the public works, and that was all overtime, and we couldn't cut back on them. And as a matter of fact, we needed so much more police that our own state police and state troopers from other states came in to help us out, because we have over 600 miles of road and 44 square miles in Toms River, so we were really stressed. But Governor Christie, with his help, we were able to come up with almost $18 million in help the first year. If we hadn't gotten that help, we would have had to raise taxes, throughout the town, and that would have really been the second disaster. So, but it's happening. People say to me, what are you going to do if there was ever another storm like that? And this is the plan I have. The minute it's coming, I have tickets for Maui, and I'm going to be on the beach of Waikiki or in Maui reading about it in the Honolulu Times. Not really, but that's what I like to think.